Hello, welcome to this edition of Intelligent Video Today from IntelliVid Research. I'm your host, Steve Vanderhaar. Join us this time, Alan Lepofsky, Chief Evangelist and Head of Product Marketing over at Mobeus. Welcome, Alan.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Well,
Thanks for having me.
we're excited to have you here. Mobeus is a company born during the pandemic. Tell us a little bit about the company, where you're hailing from, and maybe a little bit about how the pandemic has shaped your organization's outlook on your product development journey.
Sure thing. So Mobeus formed in stealth about 2 years ago. Co-founders Richie Atwaro and Mike Sutcliffe. Richie comes from the innovation and design and engineering side of things, and Mike from the business side. And these two, entrepreneurs got together and formed this wonderful organization that we call Mobeus, with the intent in improving the way human beings connect with each other. They both, throughout their careers, have given thousands of speeches and travel and talks and presentations. And even before the pandemic hit, just the amount of travel and time that they had to spend, they knew there had to be a better way to connect with audiences, a better way to connect with prospects and customers. And so they started looking at these types of technology, and web conferencing and communication tools that we have today. Many of them were lacking what they felt really was needed to connect people together. So Mobeus spent about 2 years in R&D working on what we're going to see today called AirGlass. Came out of stealth in October of 2022. So we're, coming up upon that first year of being out of stealth, which is exciting. And yeah, you mentioned the pandemic. The pandemic just accelerated everything. Work from home, people spending far more time in video conferences than we ever intended or planned on. We went from an hour or two a week, or a day, I should say, of video conferences to 4 or 6, or people that spend all day, 8 hours a day. We accelerated the need to be on video at a level that wasn't expected for another 10 years. And so today's generation of tools just weren't cut out for where we think what we're working on.
So you did mention the product you have in beta called AirGlass. Tell us a little bit in words first as a description. We'll see a demonstration in just a little bit, but tell us in words what you're trying to accomplish with AirGlass and how you're using transparency of the viewing experience to really transform business video collaboration.
I think you just nailed it. That's great. I'm just going to leave it in. What AirGlass does, it's a software-only application. That's very important. That runs on your computer's desktop, a Mac or Windows, and it creates a seamless experience of transparency between the camera feeds from everybody that's on the call, whether it's the presenter or the audience, and any content that's being shared on their desktop. We're not a plug-in to any one specific thing, like I'll be showing PowerPoint later. It's not limited to that. Whatever is on your screen, I like to go from A to Z. So from Adobe to Zendesk, whatever you are sharing on your screen, we can turn into a collaborative experience with no programming, no plugins, and most importantly, no headsets, no hardware. There's a lot of work been going on for a decade now to create immersive customer experiences. There's negative words that are used out there like metaverse. We're working on all these different things, and they've all failed at adoption for one reason or another, and it's often around the requirement for hardware and headsets. So the fundamental thing that we were doing was building a software-only solution that allows you to create that sensation and that sense of depth on your screen so you can interact with people and content at the same time. And that's what you're going to see in the demo.
Well, and seeing is believing when you come to that, because you gave me the same elevator pitch, and when we first met, and it was an interesting head nodder. But then when you actually see the demo itself, that's when you start thinking about all the applications you might be able to use for it. So let's go to the demo side. So let's flip on over there right now.
Okay, Steve, let me show you AirGlass in action. What we're looking at here is a typical PowerPoint presentation, what is given thousands and thousands of times a day. And unfortunately, there's just no connection between the presenter and the audience. That's what we solve for. AirGlass allows you to transparently be seen behind your content, any content, not specific to PowerPoint, any content. And that way, the presenter can point and highlight information while the audience can still see eyes for trust and connection, facial gestures, hand motions, body motions. You really build up a sense of authenticity with your audience, as opposed to being relegated down into a little corner somewhere. I can control that level of transparency, so you're seeing mostly me. I can fade myself out into the background a little bit. I can bring up holographic versions of my hands. Again, no headsets, no controllers, but I'm able to actually make my hands become interactive so that I can point at things. Then I can use them to actually start to highlight elements on the screen. This isn't a PowerPoint plugin. I didn't do anything to these squares to make them highlight. We're using computer vision and machine learning and edge detection to find any object on the screen. So if I start to combine all of these really cool features, like I move up the transparency, so you're now really talking to me, you're not worried much about my PowerPoint, I can still then have elements show up on screen. So it's presenting like never presented before. I'll show you one other thing. Instead of seeing me in this full screen hologram, I can move myself into what we call these little teleport windows. And I should be clear, I'm the only person in AirGlass right now. If you were in here with me or the audience was in here with me, we would have additional circles for people or additional holograms for people. But what I can do is I can even drag these into any content on the screen. So your audience can literally participate as part of the content on the screen. So it's a totally different way to present. We find that everybody from sales representatives to CEOs giving pitches to teachers giving education courses, you want to be transparent behind your content.
And AirGlass can do more than just PowerPoint, isn't that right, Alan?
You got it. It's exactly right. We are not a PowerPoint plugin. We can actually work with any application that you can display on your screen. Anything you show, we can place people transparently behind. So for example, here we are looking at the IntelliVid Research LinkedIn page, where I can point and highlight sections of the page. I can bring them to life with my hand. I can fade that page back out and just highlight certain sections at a time so that maybe we want to be talking about other pages people have seen or things like that. So anything that you want to show on your screen, if it's Salesforce, if it's SAP data, if it's Canva for teachers, programmers teaching Python lines of code, anything you want to be transparently behind, that way your audience can see both you and the content at the exact same time.
That is so cool. It really looks like something that is out of Minority Report or Iron Man or something. Can you give us some examples, though, of how we might use these capabilities in day-to-day business activities?
Absolutely. You got it. I like that you have both the movie references, because sometimes it's like people see it one way or the other. So in real business situations, again, we are targeting anyone who really wants to share information and interact with their audience. So sales teams that are trying to make their prospects remember them in a competitive field where, maybe multiple companies are pitching a prospect. If they can remember you, if they can say that pitch was the one where the person literally stood out and was able to interact with the screen, we feel we can help with those close rates. HR situations where people are doing onboarding, recruiting, interviewing, things like that, where you want to be human. You don't want to be relegated down to a little corner of your PowerPoint slides or, an 8.5 by 11 PDF of your resume. What if you really want to interact and bring content to life? Those are the use cases we're really heavily focused on. I mentioned education. Education is a huge use case. If we can help increase comprehension and retention, then that is a huge advantage to improving the world. And it feels good to be working on a tool that's improving the way, people learn, the way people develop, and the way people interact with each other. So improving everything from early childhood education to university education is a phenomenal use case.
So AirGlass right now is in the beta phase, beta mode right now. How long are you going to be in trial, and what's the business model for this going to look like when you do go GA?
It's a great question. So in the software world, as you know, like the beta phase is really intended for a startup company to gather feedback from their initial clients. It's not about the quality of the code or the features of the code. It's really about ensuring product market fit. And so right now we're working with some of the world's largest consulting companies, financial institutions, education, entertainment industries. And what we're doing is from pilot groups, we're getting feedback to modify the way the product works. For example, some of the UI elements that we originally created were actually a little bit too Iron Man or Minority Report for people. So we're actually scaling them back a little bit, which is interesting feedback to get. We want to build a product that is comfortable for what people understand how to use, but doesn't emulate everything they know how to do today. We really do want to move them to that next generation. And, I've been in the collaboration space for almost 30 years, I guess I would say. And things haven't dramatically changed all that much. Chat clients look like they did 20 some odd years ago. Collaboration tools and file sharing. We are building that first new user interface where your hands and your body actually start to become part of the UX. And that is going to take a little bit of a learning curve for people, but I think that's exciting to be one of the first companies doing it for. So how long will that beta process work? Till we're at that comfortable level. What's the business model once we're out there? So from a standard software point of view, we'd be looking probably at a per user per month type of charge. But there are different environments that wouldn't be to individuals, for example, in kiosk modes or areas where multiple people would be sharing machines or where people would be interacting with large screen displays. We'd be working with those customers on a different type of model.
Understood. So do you see this as a replacement for Zoom or Teams or WebEx? Is that the goal here?
Fantastic question. So there's two parts. Do we see it that way, and is it the goal? It is not our goal in any way, shape, or form. There's wonderful web conferencing solutions out there for large-scale meetings and things. We completely augment Zoom or Teams or WebEx experiences. If a head of a sales or account executive wants to present to a client and they have 20 people showing up onto a Zoom meeting and they share their screen and they happen to be running AirGlass, so they're transparent behind their content, the audience doesn't realize it's coming from another product. They just see a phenomenal new experience. So we can augment those existing tools, but we can be used completely standalone. So in small companies, if it's maybe a team of 20 or up to 100 type of people, you can easily have all those people just standalone in AirGlass. We do want the ultimate end solution to be having more people in AirGlass, because when it's one person in AirGlass presenting in another legacy piece of software, they won't get all the functionality of, moving their hands in the air and doing all the Minority Report things. The presenter will, because they're the person in AirGlass, but we want everyone to experience it. So in our pilot phase, this is what we've been seeing happening. Week one or two people are in AirGlass, and then they meet in a web conferencing solution. That session ends, and 20 people call that presenter and say, how did you just do what you were doing? I didn't want to interrupt inside the meeting. And next week's meeting, 4 or 5 more people come. And we see this circle where there's sort of a migration away from the legacy conferencing tools to more and more people wanting to be in AirGlass.
And really, it is the ultimate viral application. People see it and they start saying, hey, how can I put that to use as well?
It really is. Like, I have been doing collaboration software for, as I said, many decades now, and people have been following me since I've been at Mobeus. And they said, I watched all your YouTube videos. I've seen all your interviews. Just like, the interview we're doing today, they're going to watch it. They're going to see it. But when they download AirGlass and they start it for the first time, there is this initial moment of disbelief. Because whatever you had on screen, people usually don't think about what they had up on screen. It could have been their email, a YouTube video, a chat client, Facebook, who knows. They start AirGlass and then they're transparent behind their desktop. And you see them like poking their hands around and moving their head and things like that. And it's just, I love working on a product that literally makes people's eyes light up and start brainstorming, okay, how could I use this? And that's an exciting and nascent field to be in. And I'm thrilled to be part of it.
And you certainly have that with AirGlass. People start thinking of different ways to use it. Do you see applications for the technology beyond online meetings? You mentioned the notion of kiosks before. What's that all about?
Absolutely. We do tend to overemphasize this idea that it's like 2 people on the screen, you put share and you share your desktop and you do a web conference. No, AirGlass is phenomenal for live physical events. We actually debuted AirGlass for the first time at an event where our founder was presenting live on stage. And so his slides were on his laptop, his camera was looking at him, but what the audience was seeing on the giant screens behind them was him transparently shown behind his content. As his hands moved, he actually moved his slides, one slide and then the next, just by swiping his hand in the air. That's one of the things I didn't show you in that interaction. Kiosks, anything you walk up to today that you have to do on a touch screen, we envision a future where you're actually not touching the screens. You put your hand up, you grab an object, and I'm going to show you some of this, in a while if we have a chance, but interacting with products, interacting with people, interacting with data, signing documents in the air. 10 years ago, we never thought of touchscreens being everywhere. And now anytime we see a piece of glass, you assume that you can slide and zoom and touch on it. I envision a world where 5 years from now, no one's going to want to touch kiosks. They're going to just move their hands in the air, no headset, no controller, and interact with everything from an airport kiosk to Times Square's billboard. That would be the pinnacle of being able to do things.
It's an amazing, literally an amazing vision for the future that you're talking about there. Can you give us a little sneak peek of what's coming up next? Does this mean we have to go back to the demo board?
Let's go back and I'll show you where we're heading. All right, here we are in sort of our next generation of where we're going. You'll notice this is more of a 3D environment. Just like in AirGlass, it interacts with my hands. I can interact with all those objects in the background, but you'll also notice it interacts with my body. As I lean, the screen actually moves. If I look in, it zooms. If I zoom out. So we're creating the next generation user interface that actually interacts with your body, allowing you to do hand gestures in the air to control things and create things like the healthcare room of the future. So imagine, again, I can lower that transparency down. I could be either from an education standpoint or a doctor-patient standpoint. I can reach out with my hands, grab objects, move them around the screen, not just slides, but full 3D models. I can look at information. I could even do things like magically draw in the air with my hands, no headsets, no controllers. I can draw and interact with information. I can swipe to go between information. So we're really just kind of creating that next generation of the way people interact with information, interact with each other, interact with their computers. It's an exciting area to be going into.
It absolutely is. Alan, thanks so much for taking the time to show us all the capabilities that AirGlass has now and might be coming in the future. Very interesting stuff. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's my pleasure. Now let me turn it around and say thank you for having me. I've enjoyed all of our conversations leading up to this, your perspectives, your insights into what we're doing. I appreciate, bringing this to your audience, and for all of you that want to find out more, either reach out to Steve or myself. It's been my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and we thank the audience for joining us today. And if you want to see more episodes of Intelligent Video Today, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, and you'll get to hear insight from more folks like Alan. For IntelliVid Research, I'm Steve Vonderhaar. Thanks for your time.